Hey everyone, this is Scott from the Sprout to Grow podcast. Welcome to another edition of ReWatching Agents of S.3E11. Today we're talking about Season 3, Episode 11, Bouncing Back. I'm just going to be starting off with the plot summary and then just talking about a few of the points in this episode that I liked, along with some foreshadowing and Easter egg elements that I might have noticed. So let's just start off with that plot summary, which says, S.H.I.E.L.D. agents arrive in Bogota to investigate an Inhuman who stole weapons from the police. The woman, Elena Rodriguez, is apprehended despite her super speed, with the limitation of her returning to where she began moving from after one heartbeat, and she reveals that she was destroying the weapons to prevent their misuse by corrupt police officers. Coulson uses the machine that restored his memories on Strucker, who is in a vegetative state following brutal treatment by Malik's men, and discovers how Strucker was able to contact Malik originally. Coulson uses the phone there to find many of Malik's facilities, which are promptly shut down by Malik. The police kidnap Bobby and Hunter using their own Inhuman, who can temporarily petrify anyone using eye contact. Yo-Yo aids S.H.I.E.L.D. in rescuing Bobby and Hunter and agrees to join the Secret Warriors, but she remains in Colombia on call. The president informs Coulson that the new head of the ATCU will be Glenn Talbot, who will report directly to Coulson. So that's the plot summary for this one. This is the first episode back in this season, I should say, or the first episode after the mid-season break for this season, for season 3. So we kind of get, it's almost like a season premiere almost, but we get some elements from the previous season, and we see Hive in this episode. That's one thing they didn't really mention in this, but we just see Hive. He's kind of recuperating in this episode, which I kind of liked. I like that he's not just, coming back and he's super strong. He's been starving for a couple thousand years, so he's gotta eat some very raw steak. So I kind of like that element that we get a little bit of him, but not too much. The story is not really focused on him. I like that we see Malik kind of questioning whether this guy's actually who he believed it was, and then at the very end of this episode, we see Hive in his own way prove that he's, exactly who he says he is. He's just got to get his strength back. That was a cool part of this. I love this episode for the introduction of Yo-Yo. I love her as a character. Her sass, her ability is really cool. I like the fact that her power isn't just super speed. It's got that limitation of her snapping back to where she came from. And I also like that it revolves around her one heartbeat. That's one thing I did not notice my first time watching this, or the couple times I've watched this season. It's something I just never even thought of before, or even like really, I just didn't think of it before. But it was really cool that they explained it in this episode. Part of her origin in this show is that it's how far she can go in one heartbeat, or how long she can go in one heartbeat, which I think is really cool element. Again, I like when superheroes have a little bit of a limitation, so because it just makes it a little bit more interesting. It doesn't make them just super all powerful. So I like that. I actually learned about that in this episode. And it's always cool when you rewatch something, you learn a new element about a character you already liked. But yeah, so her introduction was really cool. I like that they have the language barrier at first, and I like that didn't make it easier for us. Like, they could have just had her speaking English the whole time, but I like that they stuck with having her speaking Spanish the whole time and having to communicate through, I always forget his name, the other Secret Avenger who also speaks Spanish. But anyways, what else did I like about this episode? Oh, we got the memory machine back that had been used on Coulson originally, and Coulson's now using it on someone else, which I thought was kind of nice, little cool, kind of interesting throwback, interesting way for them to get this information about how to connect to Malik, even though it doesn't take that far. Does that make sense? Like, you can be able to talk to Malik, but besides learning where some of Malik's facilities are, which Malik just shuts down anyways, it's kind of just like, well, we didn't do much with that. So but it was cool to bring that back. But yeah, and then we get Talbot kind of not in this episode, but we get the introduction in this episode that he's going to be kicking around for the rest of the season as the head of the ATCU, who's going to be, kind of the public face that, the public face of the president's initiative against the Inhumans, with Coulson kind of being the Black Ops, actual leader of it. So I like that element. I love Talbot's character, so I'm excited to get to the episodes where he's back into this. But that's everything I liked about this in particular episode, and all the stuff I may have noticed. Be sure to let me know in the comments below what you liked in particular about this episode, and any foreshadowing or Easter egg elements that you had noticed that I may have missed. But thanks again for joining me today, and have a good one.